Um, Welcome to this class, and thank you for joining me today. Um, we'll go straight up to what we will discuss. We'll be discussing basically terms of a contract, and I think it's important that we get to understand really what the terms of a contract is, because even after you've done all you need to do to ensure that the contract is valid, right? You've drafted your there's offer, there's acceptance, and there's consideration. The next important thing is, what are your obligations under the contract? You know, what are your obligations? What are your obligations basically under the contract? And that's important, really. So terms actually means your obligations and your liabilities under the contract. What is it that you're supposed to do under the contract? What is it that you must do under the contract? Those are the most important parts of a transaction. So I'll begin with so anyway, I'll begin with an exposition on that. I wanted to stop share, so let me stop share. So yeah, I'll begin with discussing that. Okay, I'll begin with, basically there are two types of, for you to be able to master how you for you to be able to master how you negotiate, how you negotiate a contract. For you to be able to master how you negotiate a contract, you must be able to know the terms of a contract in two forms. Number one is in categories. What is the category of terms? And then the second one is the types of terms. You must be able to master at that level. If you do not know what the categories of terms are, and you do not know the types of terms they are, you will not be able to effectively negotiate a contract. So I'll begin first with what terms are. I have a lot of things on my desktop, and that's affecting the things that's popping up. But it's okay. I'll take it from there. So I'll begin with categories of text, categories of terms, right? There are essentially two. There are essentially two categories of terms practically. Theoretically, there are lots of them, but there are essentially two categories of terms. One of them is called conditions and warranty. Then the second one is called fundamental terms. Okay, yeah, fundamental terms. Why the other one is called conditions and guarantee. Those are critical because each of them have roles that they play. And so if you do not understand them, you might not be able to negotiate your contract effectively. So let me get my slide here, and so that we can see that better. Okay, unfortunately, my slide is not showing up. I do not know what is happening. Okay, but let's see if it comes up. It should come up. Okay. Yeah. All right. I've seen them here now. Okay. All right. So there's the term of a contract. There's one called condition, and then there's the one called fundamental terms. A condition of a contract, it's I think condition is basically self-explanatory. Condition means the foundation or what you are supposed to do in a contract. That's what a condition means, right? So let me take the case of what's it called? Let me use the case of a web developer that is asked to develop a contract, right? Okay, one of the conditions there is that might be, if he develops this website, he should develop this website within 60 days. That's a condition, right? That's a condition of the contract. Okay, that's a condition of the contract. But then the other one will be, okay, so that condition of a contract means he's supposed to develop the website within 40 days. So that's the condition. Okay, then he's supposed to develop the website with HTML or whatever language he uses. That's also a condition, right? Now, If he breaches that condition, what happens is he becomes liable for damages. Olaide, thank you for joining me. You've been trying to join us. He gets liable for damages if he breaks that. Okay? Right. Now, but there's another term which is fundamental terms. A fundamental terms actually means the term on which the contract runs. Yes, I have my slide now. Right. Okay. So now we've gone back to fundamental terms. Fine. So you could see fundamental terms. A fundamental term means the terms that guides the contract. In other words, if that term is not satisfied, there is no contract. Let me give you an example of the web developer. Say we say the web developer, right? We give, I and Ngozi is my partner. Okay. I now say, we now contract Rume, who is our web developer. We say, develop for us a what's it called? An e-commerce website. You know, an e-commerce website, you need to have the items, the cost of the items, and all those stuff. So we say Rume should do that for us. Now, Rume, so what is the contract based? The contract is based on develop an e-commerce website, right? So that's what we said Rume should do for us. We say develop an e-commerce website. So, but Rume now develop a simple website that just have me as the MD. You know, I'm always the Oga. Then Ngozi as the general manager. Now, was that what we agree? Was that what we agree that contract should be based on? No. So even if you develop that website within 40 days, which is the condition, but the fundamental aspect of the contract was develop for us an e-commerce website. So when he develops another website that is not e-commerce website, the foundation on which our contract is based the foundation has collapsed, right? In other words, develop an e-commerce site is the fundamental term of the contract. Without that term, every other term fails. Without that term, every other term fails. So in every contract, there are two conditions you must look out for. What is that condition that without it, the contract has no foundation? Say, for example, we have a real estate company that lets out houses for people. Okay, so let me stop the slide so that I can see my face. Okay, so we have a real estate company that lets out houses for people. So what's this guy's name? Olaide then comes and say, Austin, we want to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. Okay, and she pays. And she does all that, right? And he pays, Olaide pays. And I take him to a 1-bedroom apartment, right? And I tell him this 1-bedroom apartment is the same cost as the one for the 2-bedroom that you paid. The foundation of the contract was that we give him a 2-bedroom apartment. So the moment we breach that, we breach the fundamental term of the contract. Whether or not all the other terms it's immaterial. Without he asked for a 2-bedroom apartment and we gave him a 1-bedroom apartment. In that instance, we have breached a fundamental term of the contract. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. When you breach the fundamental terms of the contract, what happens is the party that did not breach it can then cancel the contract and ask for damages. And I need you to get this. The consequence of breaching a fundamental term is that the other party who didn't breach can cancel the contract. I'm using cancel because I'm speaking colloquially. Can cancel the contract and ask for damages. The consequences of breaching a condition is that the party who did not breach can only ask for damages. He can't cancel it. He can't cancel the contract. Let me go back to our website example. So I and Ngozi Aserume should develop an e-commerce website for us in 40 days. Rume now develops it in 50 days, but he developed for us an e-commerce website. We cannot now go and say, Rume, since you did not develop for us this website in 50 days, we cancel this contract. Like we say sometimes, we no agree, we no agree, we no take this contract. We no agree, we no agree. No, that contract, that term, 40 days is a condition, right? It is not a fundamental term. The fundamental term is develop for us an e-commerce website, which he didn't do. So, which he did. But if instead of developing for us an e-commerce website, he has gone to develop a normal website, then at that instance, he has reached a fundamental term. And then we have the right now to cancel the contract and tell him that deal, no contract between us, right? Yeah, I know you're still here with me. So when you're negotiating a contract, always distinguish between the fundamental term and the other conditions. Let me give you another typical condition that's of a contract. One of the other typical conditions of a contract will be, okay, we'll tell Rume, if you develop this contract, if you develop this e-commerce website in 40 days, we'll pay you 10% more. You see, that is clearly a condition, right? So those two terms are the terms you must watch out for. What is a fundamental term? The way I like to negotiate contract is I first of all ask you, I first of all identify what is a fundamental term. Then I now build the conditions around it. Because if you do not know what the fundamental terms is, you just be negotiating things that are irrelevant. I've had instances where it took us close to 3 months to negotiate a contract that would have just closed in 2 days. Why? Because the other lawyers were negotiating non-fundamental terms, right? Okay, let me not throw shade this evening. All right, so that's the categorization of terms. The second one is the type of terms. Let me show you that. What I mean by the type of terms. Yeah. Right. This is it. There are two types of, in that form, there are two types of terms. There is the express terms and there is the implied terms. And I think it's self-explanatory. When we say a term is express, that means everything about the contract is written down, every part of it, right? But see, this is where it gets a bit tricky. You know, I asked the question yesterday. Let me see if I have the slide. Yes, I asked this question yesterday. All the terms of the contract must be stated in the contract for them to be binding, right? What's your opinion? Let me see your opinion on the charts. What's your opinion? All the terms of the contract must be stated in the contract for them to be binding. What's your opinion? I'm waiting. Okay. Chris Mary, you know I've not forgotten you. For all of you, I'm waiting. What all the terms of the contract must be stated in the contract for it to be binding? True or false? What's your opinion before we go on from there? Rume is doing wayo. He says only fundamental terms. Okay, Chris Mary says it's not feasible for all the terms to be stated. Okay, what the terms that are not stated, are they binding? That's the question. Are they binding? Rume, I caught you there. Okay, from Rume. Rume says no. The terms that are stated are not binding. Ngozi, you cannot dodge this one now. Olaide, what do you think? Are they binding? Okay, while you guys are trying to write, let's go back to, we will answer that question when we are done with this type of terms, when we are done with this. Right. So let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. Express terms are terms that are clearly written, but this is the trick. Even though your contract contract is written word for word. There are terms that are implied as part of that contract, even though they are not written down. Let me repeat that. You might have a complete contract, well done, everything structured, everything there, right? Terms not stated are not binding. Okay, that's Chris. That's Chris Mary. Okay, so let's go now so that we can answer the question. All right, you have an express contract. You've drawn up the contract. All of you have signed it. It's on paper. Like I advise, your contract should be on paper. So it's on paper. Fantastic contract, right? Then other terms were not negotiated. So you'd be like, fine. So those terms were not negotiated. They are not part of the contract. But there is a problem there. In law, there are terms that are implied in a contract, whether or not it is stated. I'll pause for effect. Yeah, in law, there are terms that must be stated that are included in a contract, whether or not they are stated. Let me use the example of a web developer, for example, like the Rumors case I was using. Most of the times these days, when you say somebody should develop a website for you, it implies most of the time that the person should buy domain name for you. Buy domain name and hosting too. You see the term I use, it is implied. It is implied, right? It is not stated expressly, but most of the time it is implied. So it is becoming customary that when I say develop a website for you, I mean buy my domain name, buy the hosting, and then develop the website and host it. But all I said was develop a website for me. That's an implied term. In law, there are three ways that terms are implied. One is by custom, like I just gave the example. The second form is by the law. Let me use, for example, sales of goods, right? According to the law, if I'm just going to give that one example because we don't have much time. According to the law, if you sell goods for me, it is implied that you stated that that goods will be used for the purpose for which I bought it. Let me give you, for example. I come to you, you sell phone. I say, sell a phone to me. You sell the phone to me. Even though it is not stated in that contract that the phone it would be used for WhatsApp message, for calls. I told you to sell to me an Android phone. It is implied, according to the law, that those terms, that this phone will be good for WhatsApp message. You have already stated it there. You do not need to state it in the contract. It is already implied by the law. That is basically called fit for purpose. All right? It is implied that it is fit for purpose. Okay, yeah. It is implied that it is fit for purpose. I'm going to come back to this so that you guys can see my face. Okay, it is implied that it's fit for purpose, right? So the law states that. You do not need to state that in your contract. Then there is the third part, which I have in that slide there that I was showing you, which deals with the circumstance where the court will imply this. That's by the courts. If, for example, I enter a contract, the example I was giving with Rume, to develop a website for me and Ngozi's business, right? This is what then happens. The courts will ask the question, what is it that is required for Rume to be able to develop that website? Even though those things are not stated expressly in that contract, the courts will impute that term into the contract to state that if we were asked the question at the time we were drafting the contract, if this were part of it, this were part of it. In other words, the court will input that everything that is necessary for us to satisfy that contract is part of the terms of the contract, even though it is not expressly stated, right? So even though you have your contract expressly written, these terms, the custom terms, statute terms, and then the court's implied terms will be imputed as being part of the contract. So what do you do? How do you escape this kind of thing? What do you do? My daughter just walked in. Shall I go? I'm doing stuff. Oh, I go. I'll see you later. All right. So you guys, you know, I have kids, so you just walked in, and I'm actually using their room. Talia, please go and meet your mom. Okay, guys, sorry. All right, they've gone. Okay. All right, where was I before they interrupted me? I was dealing with, okay, so what do you do? What do you do? Since these terms are implied in a contract, what do you do? What most professionals do is what I'm going to tell you now. What you do is that in that your express contracts, you include a clause that states that this contract contains all the terms of the contract. Once you state that in that contract, all those implied terms by the court, implied terms by statute, implied terms by um, custom, all those terms are expunged. Let me see I think I have one here. Let me show you an example of what I'm referring to so that you see what I mean. Let me show it here. Okay, I'll get it. Let me just show it here. I'll get it. Okay. Oh, I just got this stuff from Zoom. They said they've extended our meeting, but let me show you what I have here before they come back again. Let me show you, yeah, what I mean, how you should do that. Extra. Okay, I think I have it. Yeah. Yes. Okay, I have it. Let me show you what I mean. Let me screenshot it for you. Video screenshot. Yeah. All right. Look at this screen carefully. Look at where the mouse is. Look at under entire contract. Can you see it carefully? Yeah. This is what I said. This contract and any other document referred to in this contract constitutes the entire agreement. Do you see that line? Constitutes the entire agreement between the parties and supersede any prior written or oral agreements made between them. You see, what this clause has done is that this clause has expunged every implied term of a contract. Every implied term of a contract have been expunged. Every, none left. Everyone has been expunged. So that's what you do when you do not want the implied terms to apply to your contract. Right. Now, remember I was discussing also at the time, you remember I was discussing this, we were discussing the fundamental one, and we're discussing fundamental terms and conditional terms. There's something I want you to know about fundamental terms and conditional terms. There's something we can do really. You can decide to make every term of your agreement fundamental. Let me repeat. You can decide to make every term of your agreement fundamental. How? What you do is you can indicate in the contract that so and so term is fundamental, that on the breaching of that term, the contract terminates. You have the power. Remember, I also spoke about your right to contract. Yeah. So you can decide that every term is fundamental, but you must include that expressly in your contract, that this term is fundamental. Because this term is fundamental, if this term is breached, the contract becomes invalid. That can be included. Yeah. So that's our discussions around what a term is for, around the terms of a contract. There is one I wanted to discuss, but I really don't think we need that because we will get to that anyway. So you need to now understand these two aspects of the terms of a contract, whether the terms are implied, whether the terms are expressed. Remember what I said, that when the terms are expressed, right, what is not expressed is imputed onto it if it is normally the custom of that business, if the law states so, and if the court decides so. Those are the three things that can be implied. But I also said then that you can remove those terms that are implied by including those terms that I showed you an example, right? By including that clause in your contract, that this contract contains all the things that we have decided about this contract. Yeah. Yes. So that's where I'm going to stop tonight. I've taken 26 minutes. If you have any questions, we could take it for 5-10 minutes. and then we'll go on from there. Felix, thank you for just joining us. Cool. Nice to have you. Yeah. So any questions? Okay, so let me just do this now. So so can you guys now answer this then? Can you guys now answer this? Let me find it. We'll see it here today. Let me find it. Yeah. No, not this one. Let me find it so I can add it to the slide. Yeah, true or false. Okay. Can you guys now answer this? Yes. Can you answer this now? All the terms of the contract must be stated in the contract for them to be binding. True or false? Okay, you know what? Let me mute your mic. Should I? Okay, go on. One message, two message. Let me see. Aha, false. False. Cool. Okay, Rumer says false. Yeah, Olaide says true. Laide says true. Okay, I think he missed us there. Right. Ngozi says true. Okay. All the terms of the contract must be stated in the contract for them to be binding. The answer is false. And like I explained, the answer is very simple. Even though all the terms are stated, there are terms that will be implied in the contract by the law and by custom. And I gave a typical example. Let me give you another typical example. In a contract of employment, for example, it is implied, you need not state it, it's implied in the contract of employment that the employer must provide work for the employee to do. So the employer cannot fire the employee and says he doesn't do any work when he didn't provide the work for the employee. So whether or not he states it in the agreement that he will provide work for the employee, it is implied that he must provide work for the employee. That's implied in the contract. So in that instance, was that term stated in the contract? No, it wasn't stated. Yet that term was binding. So it is not true that all the terms of the contract must be stated in the contract, because some terms are implied and some terms are expressed. But I've told you what to do, that if you want to remove the implied contract from your contract, you must use a clause like this clause that I showed you. And let me repeat it for the benefit of those that were not here. You must include a clause like this. And I said, where's the clause? Yeah, you must include like this clause 5 here. This agreement and any other documents referred to in this agreement constitutes the entire agreement between the parties and supersede any prior written or oral agreement. In other words, no other agreement, no other terms can be imputed into this contract. Yes. All right. So I'm done for tonight. Any questions, guys? Should I unmute your mic so that you could ask? I could do that, you know. Or you could just chat me, send a message on the chat, and then we'll take it up from there. Okay, I'm going to do this. Any question, Mary?
Hi.
Yeah.
It's actually a guy.
Oh, Chris Mary. I keep calling you Mary. All right, yeah.
So I think I missed the first training, so still yeah, so I don't have much context and much background.
The discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, but probably if I can get something to read up on, you know. But what I wanted to find out is, so apart from other terms being implied, maybe if you could just throw more light on that clause you mentioned.
Okay.
Because my current role in the bank, I work with corporate clients, and you know, we're involved in a lot of syndicated facilities where we have more than one lender come together.
Yeah.
and there's a facility agent, right, who sort of acts as a liaison between the borrower and the club of lenders.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of documentation, a lot of there's common terms and agreements, there's intercreditor agreement. So I'm saying in reality, even if you don't have just one document, right,
Yeah.
guiding the transaction, is it such that all the documents, no matter how many there are, must now contain all the necessary terms?
Okay, I get that. I get that.
That's my question.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is okay. I've done a bit of that financing bit too, and it could be a bit cumbersome. It could be interesting. Okay. Let me show you. Let me share that slide again. Let's look at that clause 5. Right. You can see it on your screen. Yeah.
I can see it.
All right. Now, the clause begins. It says this agreement and any other document referred to in this agreement constitute the entire agreement. Right. In a sense, right? In lending purposes, sometimes, like you said, there might be different parties with different agreements going flying around, right? What's implied in this sense mean it's there are traditional terms that are deemed in every industry to be part of an agreement, of a contract. There are traditional terms. And I gave the example of a contract of employment. An employer does not need to state in the contract of employment that he will provide work for the employee. He doesn't need to state it. Part of the covenant that you provide work for the employee. He doesn't need to state that expressly. It is implied in every contract of employment that the employer must provide work for the employee. You get the difference now. Yeah, it is implied. It doesn't need to be expressly stated. But what most people do is to expressly state it. Let me give you another example.
Okay.
Let me give you another example. Also in a contract of employment, what happens most of the time is that the employee is vicariously liable. In other words, the employer, for every damage that the employee causes anybody, the employer is liable. That's the tradition. But what now happens in every contract of employment is that it is now drafted in the contract of employment that the employer will be liable for every damage caused another person by the employee in the course of his employment without negligence. If that clause is not stated there, if the employee is coming to work and slaps somebody on the road and the person falls, the employer becomes liable because he was coming to work, even though it didn't happen in the course of employment, because that's, of course, coming to work is not included in the employment, in the course of employment. But if, for example, let's say the guy drives a truck, right? And then you, as the employer, you tell him, take these goods to Benin from wherever you are. Why going to Benin? He now hits another person's vehicle, right? And damages the vehicle. The employer ordinarily becomes liable because he did that in the course of employment. Whether that is stated in the contract, it is implied in the contract. But what the smart guys that have smart lawyers do is that it will not be stated in the contract that in the course of his employment, if he does so and so, the employer will be liable. Now, if the employer told him, stop, don't drive, take this thing to Benin, but once it gets to 5 o'clock, don't drive, pull over where you are and spend the night in a hotel. But he now insists after 5 and the accident happens at 6 or 7, the employer is no longer liable because it didn't happen in the course of his employment. His instruction was take it to Benin, but once it gets to 5, pull over where you are. It was after 5 to 6 and he was driving. Do you understand what I mean? So Those terms are traditionally employed. That if you employ me and ask me to do something, any damage I cause in line with that, you are liable. So for you to now remove that liability, you must expressly state it that I am not liable for anything he does outside so and so. So that excludes those implied terms. I hope you understand what I mean. Yeah,
makes sense.
That excludes it. Yeah. So, but most of the time, this is the challenge I get when I'm reviewing a lot of contracts. People just Rume wrote it like this in his contract, right? I just lift everything without considering the peculiarity of my own case. And most of the time, that causes problem. Most of the time. Time. Yeah, most of the time.
Thank you very much.
It's okay. Let me give everybody even a typical example. Felix, Felix, Laide is back. Rume, anyone has a question? Chris, you need to explain to me this meriting later. It's fine. I'm just trying to. All right, let me meet you guys. If you have a question, let me hear it. If you do. All right. If you don't, okay. Felix doesn't have. All right, fine. So that's fine for me. All right. I hope you were able to learn so much. I'm sorry about the technical hitches. I think I contributed. I don't know who contributed, but maybe that's why Zoom gave us an extended time. All right. So I hope you've learned a lot today on the terms of a contract, right? I said I was going to do it. That was going to be a surprise for everybody that signed up. The surprise is still going to come, but the surprise is going to come in a nice form. That's all I'm going to say. But the surprise is going to come. We've had 2 sections on this. So the surprise will still come. Yeah, Rume, anything for us?
No, nothing.
All right, then. You're going back to where you were. Okay. Ngozi, are you saying anything? No, she says no. Ngozi is my very good friend. Very, very good friend.
Why are you talking to me now? Wait.
Oh, sorry.
No.
So sorry, guys. She has come. Yeah, any question for us?
Well, no.
All right. Thank you. Okay, guys. I'm planning to have another section on these contract things since we are dealing with the fundamentals. And I want to have it next week. It's going to call how to terminate a contract or how to exit a contract, because I think that's fundamental. We've learned how to begin the contract. We've also learned the terms of the contract. But the third other one we should consider should be, how does the contract end? And I don't know about you, but you've heard this thing that's been flying around, force majeure. You know, everybody's talking about force majeure in a contract, force majeure. Let me give you a typical example. We told Rume that Rume designed an e-commerce website for us in 40 days. Rume now started designing. His system then crashed. Rume was designing. The house he used to live in now caught fire. His system and everything in that system got burnt. Will the contract still continue? Is there still a contract? Can I sue him? Can I sue him to recover? Can I sue him for damages? Let me give you a typical example of what we have in this COVID-19. You and I have several, I am an importer. You asked me to import so and so goods from you from China. While we've signed the agreement, suddenly the federal government banned anything coming in from China. Am I liable for damages? That's the question we'll answer on Thursday next week. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I've enjoyed today's section, but next week will be awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. I'll remember to call you Chris now. Thank you.
No, Chris Mary is fine.
All right, then. All right. Thank you so much, then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Rest.